Hello, my name is Michael from Cranfield, the manufacturer of artist paints and printmaking inks. Please don't be offended that we've chosen as a topic for this brief film the subject of how do I prime a canvas? You may think it's so simple, what could possibly go wrong? Well, things may not go wrong, but with a few simple techniques we can change what is an adequate commercially produced canvas into something which is excellent and worthy of your artwork. The first thing to remember is even if a canvas claims to be pre-primed, the primer will have been applied probably by a rotating brush rather than by hand. So the film weight of the primer will be very thin, far too thin to give you what we would describe as good holdout of colour, whether that's oil or acrylic paints. So what are we going to do about it? Well, first of all, if you're going to be applying an acrylic primer, we suggest that you make the canvas wet before you do anything else, simply with water, working your way across the canvas. It doesn't matter in what direction, it doesn't really matter how you do it. You don't want to drench the canvas, but you want to make it damp, and don't forget to do the sides as well. And the reason we do this, it means that the canvas is ready and absorbent for a water-based acrylic primer. Now it just so happens I have prepared one of these earlier, and so I can turn to this pre-started canvas to talk us through the next stage. Now we take a primer. I'm simply going to be using a standard white acrylic primer. You may want to use a gesso. That's very similar, but it's got more tooth. If you like, it's slightly more absorbent. And we're going to be applying the primer in one direction only. Now the subsequent coatings can go in another direction, but for each surface we go in one direction. And I'm applying a relatively thin film weight. I'm pulling the product out as far as it will go, and that's important because it means that the primer has far greater chance of drying uniformly and drying relatively quickly. So we're covering the entire surface and then we're allowing it to dry for several hours. Even though it feels set, we need to make sure it's cured. But when we are convinced that it's ready for a subsequent film weight application of primer, we check the surface looking for whether it's fibres from the canvas that are sticking up or small air bubbles, and armed with a bit of sandpaper and a face mask, we're just going to remove those imperfections. The first film weight, the second application, the third application, until we're ready to go. Now that rule of thumb applies for both acrylic or oil-based, but of course if we're using an oil-based primer, we wouldn't wet the canvas first with water. We'd use a rabbit skin glue as a size, or we'd use an imitation product to provide the same function, to seal the canvas before we start building up our primer. This particular product is called a thixotropic oil-based primer, and it simply means, that term thixotropy, is that if we put a bit of energy into the product, the viscosity will reduce. You stop adding energy, the viscosity comes up again. It's worth saying as a final note that once you have primed your canvas, always allow it to dry in good natural light. If you put it under the stairs or you lean it against a wall and it dries in darkness, well, you can on occasions get an unpleasant yellow hue, a tone there. The good news is it's only transitory, it's not there for long, and that yellow tone can quickly dissipate if you bring the primed canvas back out into natural light. But best not to put yourself through the worry, let it dry in natural light. So those simple techniques will provide a perfect ground for good works of art, giving you good holdout for your colours so you get vibrant results from relatively cheap canvases. So I hope you haven't been offended or found it patronising, and I hope some of these little tips will help you as you prepare your canvases.